As you might know, I get fairly impressed by certain anime series often, but none of them I will say have been quite as standout in recent memory as Kaguya-sama Love is War. Everything about this anime just has the right amount of fun, charm, uniqueness, and heart warmth that makes me feel compelled to talk about these sorts of anime. A 3-course meal with a dessert on the side of absolute joy that A1 Pictures and Aka Akasaka provided, and god do I say it was scrumptious. And I feel like a certain someone should be here to attest to this.
Hello, I'm here once again to help gush over another series me and Leeson have been watching together. Bit of a running theme at this point, I guess. Kaguya was for me, and I'm sure Leeson would agree, one of those series that immediately felt special right away and only really got better and better with each season that we watched. If you're looking for romance, sure, there's some of that. But if you're looking for the funniest series you've seen in a good while, there's plenty of that too.
Right, so let's preface a few things. I am aware that as far as the manga is concerned, it's all wrapped up in a neat little bow. Like, everything is finished. The anime series, as of right now, is currently a little past the halfway point if we count the movie, so likely we'll have to catch up where the movie leaves us off. As well as this, I have been watching Kaguya-sama in dub. 1, because Shay struggles with reading subtitles, and 2, because the dub isn't nearly as bad as people make it out to be, and is quite funny to Western audiences as well. Shocker, right? And lastly, something you got to know about this series is that it has a narrator, and he's incredibly cheesy and sarcastic to comment on the shenanigans of our characters, as far as the dub is concerned. But in both, they are often commenting on the interactions and keeping score of who wins each battle. As the name of the series implies, love is war, which in this context means that love and the emittance of love itself is a battle. And the game you play with your love interest is one of tactics and one-upping the other in order to see who breaks first and confesses their love. So yeah, casual psychological warfare, with our ever-quirky narrator who spectates this ongoing war of the heart.
And that's where our initial impression of the series really comes from, honestly. We're met with our two main characters, Kaguya Shinomiya and Miyuki Shirogane, who are going to be our main focus for the actual romantic tension of the series. Here we have two very distinct personalities and family backgrounds, but one very big thing in common. They are both in love with the other, but will not allow themselves to lose by confessing to the other.
This dynamic, coupled with the hilarious banter we receive from the narrator, creates an immediately attractive premise that had us invested straight away. Like, one of the first scenarios we get given is when Kaguya hatches the elaborate plan to give Miyuki tickets to a romance movie in order to goad him into asking her if she wants to see it. An almost definite loss for Miyuki, as this would almost be like confessing love. However, given he is just as skilled of a tactician as Kaguya is, he flips the situation around and plays upon the fact that it's her choice if she wants to see a romance movie, and this, as you can expect, bounces back and forth between them. Up until Chika Fujiwara, another character of note, clueless as she is, suggests for them to see a comedy movie instead, as she already has tickets for them, destroying any and all tension in the room. And this is what we will get onto later in highlighting the com part for rom-com. These scenarios are part of what makes Love is War so enthralling to watch. Two tacticians duking it out in order for someone in the end to wave the white flag and concede. But here, it's for romance. Generally speaking, it's a similar dynamic that Light and L have in Death Note. However, it's put into a setting no one would really expect and where most feel more comfortable as a slice of life rom-com. It's unique and it has a lot going for it in that respect. Now, as far as the series is concerned, the comedy and its romance are definitely some of the key aspects with this series, and what makes it enjoyable in the first place. But once again, as you've come to expect with these Shay collab videos, there's more than meets the eye. We'll explore that more a bit later, but for now, let's take a good look at who our characters are.
Let's start with my personal favourite, Kaguya. Kaguya can be best described as a bit of an enigma from the get-go, as in, it's not very clear as to what she's all about. Mostly to begin with, she is solely focused on one-upping the president in their mental battles, though it is during the scenes when Miyuki is out of the picture where we really get to explore the many facets that make Kaguya Kaguya. In one instance, she has a caring side when helping a young crying girl cross the street on her way to school. She also shows herself to be quite neurotic when it comes to the big question of who will text who first, overthinking what impression it might give off to Miyuki. But she can also be quite insecure too, worrying that Chika poses as a romantic rival for her due to her being flat-chested, unlike Chika, who obviously is not. The way she outwardly presents is very cold and calculating, with a tendency to tease Miyuki with her signature catchphrase, "You're really quite cute," in order to embarrass him for certain actions he might take. This often causes him to rethink the things he does to avoid her reacting this way, and that's where it really becomes a game of 4D chess for the pair of them, using mind games to try and coax a confession or a romantic action out of the other. Kaguya is from a wealthy background, which often makes her seem quite highly strung, but we actually learn that she truthfully feels quite isolated by this, as it prevents her from partaking in certain social events that other people come to enjoy naturally, from simply walking to school or going to watch the fireworks. She's incredibly lonely, and due to that she's had to learn to be by herself and not rely on others, which, as we'll come to learn, has really affected the way she presents herself to others.
Now to talk about Miyuki Shirogane, we have to first talk about his title and status at Shuchin. Miyuki is the student council president at Shuchin, which on top of competing with Kaguya in exams, definitely makes Miyuki want to stand out above the rest considering his less prestigious background, which is one of the things that contrasts Kaguya. However, Kaguya herself takes the mantle of being the vice president, showing that both are still almost equals in terms of where they stand in Shuchin. As for Miyuki himself, like I said, he doesn't come from wealth like Kaguya, but still very much on par in terms of intellect and strategy. They are like two sides of the same coin after all, but he also tries to hold himself to a pristine standard, all in an effort to protect his image. The French party scenario was definitely a perfect example of this, despite him not knowing any French. In fact, there's a lot about him that's not perfect. Contrary to popular belief, he is fallible and prone to failing once in a while, but that's one of the main appeals behind the scenarios with Chika, where he asks her to tutor him on how to play basketball or sing. Despite this though, he works and studies around the clock, which is often why he always looks like he's woke up on the wrong side of the bed. And in terms of how he feels about Kaguya, obviously he does really like her, but the thought of even confessing to her scares him due to her background and being more severely impressive than his, which is often why he sees scenes of Kaguya talking down to him and calling him Hugh. This is what he sees when it comes to Kaguya. But I feel like his main strength, and the thing that I also find great about him personally, is the fact that he had to work his way up to the top by any means necessary. Working, studying, smashing out the student council candidacy with ease to make a name of himself within Shuchin, just to stand on the earth that Kaguya herself walks upon. It's really admirable, and he is just an amazing character to have here.
Our two main supporting characters are Chika Fujiwara and Yu Ishigami. Chika often acts as an accidental foil to Kaguya and Shirogane's antics over pushing each other's buttons. When the two see an opportunity to set up a date but not wanting to be the one who's doing the inviting, Chika always inserts herself into the situation and fizzles out whatever tension was building. This tends to act as a way of prolonging their mind games. Obviously though, Chika is not aware that she's doing this. In fact, she doesn't even pick up on the romantic tension at all. She's incredibly airheaded and goofy, which makes us love her. Whilst her obliviousness is a little frustrating at times because you want to see their love blossom, even I can admit it only adds to the flawless writing of the show because it never feels stale or repetitive. Chika sees herself as a detective, but her cluelessness of the tension she's surrounded by day after day proves that her sleuthing abilities are just all kind of in her head, to be honest.
Finally, Yu Ishigami. Yu is an interesting case because you have a character in a rom-com that doesn't really have any interest in love or even any of the friends of his own. And that's mainly because of his cynical outlook on other students, which reads like every r/nice guys post ever. His abhorrence for other people comes from a place of loneliness and despair. But despite this, Yu is generally kind of nice and well-meaning when you get to know him. Realistically, there's not a lot to be said about Yu Ishigami otherwise, but throughout the seasons we do see some developments. Miko Ino, another character of note but not necessarily for this video specifically, does have some history with Yu, which we see when she gets introduced in season 2, which makes for some banter, admittedly. As well as also taking part in the cheerleading team later in that season, which does help him come out of his shell a little bit, and introduces a potential love interest in Tsubame for him, because we love B-plots. But yeah, these later developments are eventually what make Yu more likable and sweet character, all things considered, and I feel like he's definitely a standout for this. So this covers our main 4. We'll briefly cover Miko Ino as she also has quite some relevance to the story, just not really as much as what has been adapted so far. Tsubame Koyasu could also be important, as she, in seasons 2 and 3, are the reason for why Yu is overall a much better person later on. Now we will take a brief moment to go over each season so far.
Season 1, in a nutshell, does what every one-course stretch of a long series is meant to do. It gives you a layout of the world, its characters, and its premise. We get introduced to everyone and what either their goal is or what their relevance is. It's the part of the story where our characters first find their footing. It doesn't make it too ambitious from the get-go, and we love it for that, and by the end of it, you can tell what our characters mean to one another, and that's great. Season 2, however, throws things through a loop when the series student council goes through its re-elections, and it seems like Miyuki doesn't want to run again, only to show Kaguya that he's re-entering the race and competing against Miko Ino, someone who definitely doesn't get what being a good student council president is all about. But when the race is almost over, it's Yu that gets Miyuki to still win, but not have Ino completely fumble because of stage fright, and it's apparent why she and Yu butt heads a lot of the time, but Yu also cares about her and doesn't want her to struggle with her goals. Even though she doesn't win the election, she still has enough confidence within herself to keep going, and she does get made into the new council's auditor.
Miko Ino is competent but also a bit of a stickler for the rules and abhors anything lewd or weird. I personally feel like she's a decent character to have around. I'm not as big of a fan of her so far, but she is okay all things considered. The latter half of season 2 is kind of something that builds up to what season 3 will be more about. This is where Yu comes out of his shell, joins the cheerleading squad and meets Tsubame, and where he gets to confront a previous crush from the past. It's basically a more Yu-centric second half to the season. But yeah, season 2 showcases a lot of what season 1 had, but just reinforces it. The dynamic being stronger than ever before and still being hilarious and incredibly written. Now for season 3. It's probably one of the best seasons they've put out. Season 3 bearing the title Ultra Romantic is no joke. This is leading up to the climax of what it was set out for us. Once again, as I had stated, it only levels up the dynamic set out from the get-go. It's like a season 2 plus from the beginning. The only thing being different is that the stakes are much higher than ever before. This is because Miyuki is actually selected to pursue going to Stanford, unlike Kaguya, who's going to Shuchin's university. So he wants to make Kaguya confess, before he will at the upcoming Shuchin School Festival. They're now in an impasse. Oh yeah, and the B-plot with Yu is also taking place here as well. He can't deny his feelings about Tsubame, and it's making him have a genuine change of heart about people. Of course, so far we haven't just gotten 3 seasons of the anime. Before a possible 4th season comes out in the future, we did get a whole movie following the events straight after the climactic season 3. I should also mention that this movie isn't that old, and a lot of people may have not seen it or the conclusion to season 3, so you may want to entirely skip over this section of the video if that is the case.
The Kaguya movie takes place directly after the events of season 3. It acts as an overall reflection of the events of the festival and the confession that happened. A lot of emotions are going through our main characters' heads about what happens next and what this means for them. For the time being, the two are keeping it to themselves, and I, of course, who is, as always, acting as Kaguya's romantic guru and normalcy translator. Kaguya is incredibly vulnerable at this point as she's learning about the efficacy of different types of kiss and what it might imply, adding a hilarious element of embarrassment to Kaguya's tiny infant brain, as she fears she's just implied to Miyuki that she wants to get down and dirty.
Boner.
Meanwhile, Miyuki is very confused about how Kaguya is acting. She will go from infantile to the ice princess Miyuki once knew, showcasing that there is a conflict in her head that is changing her from the inside out. They both don't know how to make heads or tails of the situation, with Miyuki wanting to know what Kaguya's intentions were with their kiss, to Kaguya wanting to know where they stand now from his perspective, hence why she throws her heart over. She wants to truly know how he feels.
Not only is the movie on the heels of a passionate confession of love and what happens next, but it's also a strong message about relationships and who we fall in love with versus the person's perspective of themselves. Miyuki loves every aspect of who Kaguya is, and she feels the same way for him, but the tension of the movie comes from the two of them thinking that they have to be this idealized version of themselves that they have created in order to maintain a certain outward appearance. Miyuki is obsessed with one-upping his last big spectacle of affection, despite Kaguya being more than happy with something simple and normal. This really speaks to the reality that sometimes the most special thing you can do to impress your partner can also be the simplest thing, and that the special moments are special themselves because they're with the person that you love, rather than because you've just put on a big show with balloons and mystery.
At the same time, Kaguya is worried about all of the walls she's putting up coming down and revealing her more sensitive side, the side of her that she is scared of the future, the side of her that wants to be intimate with other people, the side of her that her family and status have forced her to be. She has to learn all of those things are a part of her. She doesn't need to have all of the answers or be in control, but it's also okay for her to want to have a level of control. She fears that she's only likable when she's cute and worries that her less than favorable qualities may drive him away.
The movie takes place at Christmas time, with Miyuki wanting to desperately ask Kaguya if their relationship has developed into one of boyfriend and girlfriend. Meanwhile, Kaguya panics that her lack of experience has caused her to make an error by kissing him in an overly passionate way. This makes her distance herself from him and lashing lashing out aggressively to keep him at arm's length, whilst also confusingly trying to urge him to kiss her so that she can feel less guilty about the way that she kissed him initially. She believes telling him she loves him isn't even possible because she doesn't even know what it means to have a normal romance. But Miyuki is determined to do what it takes to break through her shell and make another grand gesture in order to catch her attention and make her Christmas special. Despite her confusing behavior, Kaguya agrees to attend a Christmas party with Miyuki and the others, where he struggles over what he could possibly gift her that's special enough to show how he feels, feeling like he needs to be perfect to even equally be worthy of her. He runs away to avoid her disliking the gift and she chases him, ultimately catching him and actually finding his gift charming. They once again kiss, but in a more subtle way, and decide that just being together is enough for the both of them.
Overall, Kaguya is so special because the concept of love being a battle isn't that far from the truth. Yes, oftentimes it's not so literal in the sense of calculated mind games, but at the same time, is that really so far from the truth? I mean, how many people can attest to the fact that when you like someone, no matter how old or clever you are, it can be frustrating and anxiety-inducing to not know for sure how someone feels. Dating in this day and age can often seem like a game, or at least when you see someone's idea of dating, it sure can feel that way. All this nonsense people go through about whether or not it's okay to double text or if that seems needy. Plus, with the addition of social media and putting so much meaning behind liking a post and what that means, I think Kaguya-sama in a way can kind of feel like a commentary on that, whether intentional or not. It's exaggerated for comedic effect, and the inclusion of a narrator makes for such a unique, quirky viewing experience as well.
I think that what the series really says about love and relationships is that when you are combative with the one that you love, you aren't being completely honest about who you are. Kaguya's had to be outwardly perfect and brilliant for so long. When she's alone with Ai, she tends to spiral and regress to a point where she can't make decisions. Miyuki has had to prove himself due to being from a less wealthy background, so he puts on a pretense and tries to be big and flashy. The movie is a perfect way to resolve this, as they're being forced to confront the fact that being in love and being in a relationship means you should never have to be on the defensive when it comes to being the truest version of yourself. If you try to keep up that guard forever, it would lead to an unhealthy relationship, and it's so great that the two of them can resolve this so early on. There are so many relationships that fail due to an inability for people to wear their hearts on their sleeve.
In terms of the anime adaptation, I think if the story happened to end with the movie, it would be perfect because the series has essentially done everything that it set out to do. But I'm completely unopposed to there being more, especially since it can only delve deeper into the intricacies of romance. When I compare Kaguya to other romance anime of note that I've seen, I find it to be so different. In Toradora, Tiger leaves because she thinks she has a few things she needs to work on before she can be in a proper relationship.
It's bittersweet because we know she's going to come back, but it shows a lot of maturity on her end to do so. In Clannad, Tomoyo and Nagisa act as two very different people who balance each other's flaws. Tomoyo makes Nagisa more confident, and Nagisa makes Tomoyo less rash and prone to thinking with his fists. We see them fall in love because they complete each other.
In My Dress Up Darling, Gojo and Marin come together as this unlikely pair that validate one another in a way they aren't really getting anywhere else. I also have to add, in Uzaki-chan, Uzaki acts as a boost for Sakurai to encourage him to live life in a more fun way and broadens his horizons. Compared to all of these, Kaguya kind of just says you don't need to change, you just need to be you. I should clarify that none of these examples are wrong, but none of them are inherently perfect either. But the collection of all of them make for some pretty sweet interpretations of love. Which one do I think has it most right? That's a difficult question.
Whilst they all seek out to do different things, I think it's more to do with the relationship dynamics presented in each story. In Toradora, both protagonists have their issues, but I think Tiger's are more prominent throughout. It totally makes sense that she would feel like she needs to work on herself a bit more in order to shine as brightly as possible, but it's always a positive that it's her choice to do so. In Clannad, Tomoyo and Nagisa build a whole life together based on how well they complement each other. In Clannad, it's all about how people help and influence each other's lives as one big collective family.
Gojo and Marin so far in the anime at least aren't fully there yet, but a big part of their relationship is the foundation on which you can lean someone to support who you are and what you are all about. Uzaki and Sakurai are a huge lesson in enjoying each other's company and making the most of what you have in front of you. In a way, Kaguya-sama incorporates all of these aspects of learning to love yourself whilst acknowledging that it's okay to not like everything about yourself.
Especially when you have someone who can appreciate those flaws for you. There's importance to being so different from your partner, yet still appreciating liking the same things as them, especially when no one else in your life does. The world is vast, and so there's no reason not to be spontaneous sometimes and do a big crazy thing, just as long as you respect having some downtime too. Anywhere you go and anything you do can be bliss with the right person by your side, and all of these animes encapsulate this perfectly.
Speaking of which, I did address this already in my YouTube posts on the Dreaded site and on Blue Sky, which is the reason for why I hadn't uploaded for quite a while, like a couple of months. I felt like I really needed some downtime myself because 1, burnout is not fun, and 2, I'm in a spot with the channel where I'm not entirely certain what I should be doing for content. Anime videos are fun and all, but I feel like there are so many other opportunities within other avenues of content, so I'm wanting to hold off on the anime related videos for the time being until I can decide on what the future for this channel holds. In the meantime, I will try to conceptualize future videos and plan some more out with Shay, but I also plan to start streaming at some point as well. I think Twitch would be the platform of choice, so yeah, twitch.tv/LeesonTV, follow me there if you want to catch those. I'll be streaming some Black Ops 6, maybe some Minecraft, Fortnite, just anything I feel like doing. And I'll try to be as interactive with the chat as I can. And while I'm at it, consider subscribing. More to go out soon, but for now, catch you later.